Things We Hide from the Light, and I have some thoughts. If you haven't finished this yet, or you haven't started reading it, you're still intending to read it, save this for later, and then scroll on past because there will be spoilers. All right, let's get into it. First things first, this was one of my favorite books from last year, Things We Never Got Over. I've read it twice now. I reread it earlier this year, and it still held up as a 5-star read for me. I love Knox. I love Naomi. I loved the whole story. A little nervous to read Nash's story just because Knox just felt like the perfect growly, broody book boyfriend. Nash might be the better Morgan brother. I loved this book so much. I will get this out of the way and say that this was 4.5 stars for me. The only reason that I did not feel like it was 5 stars, like Things We Never Got Over, is while I did not feel like Things We Never Got Over dragged and was too long, this felt like it dragged a little bit in the first half of the book. Still loved it. I will still probably read it again. I honestly cannot stop thinking about it, but that's why. The characters, on the other hand, I think I loved them even more. Knox felt like just grumpy for the sake of it, like just like pissed off at life for no reason. Nash felt like he had actual depth and was like really trying to work through his shit, which I feel like is so relatable for so many people, like people who are dealing with like anxiety and depression and are just like trying to find hope and like live their lives. I loved that about Nash. There were moments where he felt really desperate for Lena's love, and I know that that was something that he struggled with in the book, but overall I felt like he just wanted a reason to live, and he wanted a reason to feel like he should be living, and Lena was giving. One of the other things I love about this book and Things We Never Got Over is that even though it is spicy, there are some like really, really great steamy scenes. It is not what carries the book. There is like a legit plot. It is very well written. It is captivating. I want to know what happens. I'm gunning for the couples. Like there's all this development that actually kept me wanting more, like more than the spice. The spice was like the cherry on top. That being said, 374-ish pages of slow burn might be too slow for the slow burn. Video about it. It was so satisfying when they finally got together, but 374 pages to get there. So loved that there were little snippets of Lucian and Sloane and like getting like the setup for their book, which I am so excited for. Just can't. I loved it. 5 stars. Love this book so much. Probably a contender for top books of 20.
I recently finished Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score, and I rated this 5 stars. Let me tell you why. This book is a continuation of Things We Never Got Over, which is a romance based in Knockmount and follows Knox and Naomi with their whole journey. During that book, we meet Knox's brother Nash. We then carry on with Things We Never Got Over, and the story is just amazing, and we love that, and we love Knox and Naomi. This book follows Nash and his story following on from Knox and Naomi's story. And I loved this book. It was so good. The banter, the flirtiness, the heat, the spice, the tension. It was so good. And it was a slow burn in terms of like the romance kind of, it burned a little bit slowly, but in such a good way. It was so well done. The plot of who did it and the crime and the kind of police investigation, all of that sorts of things, I was hooked by that. I didn't ever feel bored reading this book, and I just couldn't put it down. Absolutely loved this.
For anyone wondering, where I made a video the other week about a creased cover, I actually got that fixed. I did a return and got a new one sent to me because it was not acceptable that a brand new book pre-ordered for months came and it was just completely creased here. So I got that fixed. Now onto what I thought of Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. I was really surprised how much I enjoyed this book. I wasn't sure what I was going to feel about the good boy, bad girl trope, which I pretty much never see. But I really did enjoy it. Just something about Lena and Nash. They just draw you in from the get-go, and both of them are such complicated characters. They've had so much like trauma and stuff in their past that they've had to go through, and it's caused Lena herself to be like very reluctant of having anyone touch her. She doesn't like hugs, but of course she loves being hugged by Nash. So it's just a fantastic story. I think it's really well written, and yeah, I just got sucked in. 5-star book for me. Absolutely loved it. I think I enjoyed this one much more than the first one, actually, which really surprised me. What I did love, probably a little bit mostly in this book, was all the Lucian and Sloane little snippets that we got as well, because Lucian already has my heart, he has my soul, and we barely know anything about him, so I cannot wait for September to come when we get their book, because I'm telling you, I am going to be deceased by the end of that book. I am so excited. If you haven't heard of this book or haven't read it yet, then make sure that you do. And where have you been, really? Because it's been everywhere. Everyone's been talking about it. So go check out the first book, Things We Never Got Over. Then this one is book 2, Things We Hide from the Light. The first one follows Knox. The second one follows his brother, Nash, who is the chief of police. And third book is going to follow the morally reprehensive character Lucian, who is the best friend of Knox and Nash. So absolutely need to check this entire series out. It is a chunky book, so if you've got big book fear, just beware of that. It is quite chunky. All of them are like 500 to 600 pages long, so beware of that. But let me tell you, it's so worth it.
I finished reading Things We Hide from the Light a couple weeks ago, and I think I'm finally ready to talk about it. So if you've been following me for a little bit, you'll know that Things We Never Got Over was one of my favorite reads last year. I thought it was like a really fun, grumpy ex-sunshine romance, and I just loved it. I loved the small town vibes as well. So this book follows Knox and Naomi. This next book, Things We Hide from the Light, follows Knox's brother and Lena, who is Knox's friend. This felt like the slowest of slow burns. Honestly, this was so hard for me to read. I didn't believe in the chemistry between Nash and Lena at all. And by the way, this is like 575 pages, so that this is like a long-ass book to read if you're not really into the romance. Aside from the chemistry, this was like low-key law enforcement propaganda. It was like if you were to say ACAB, this book says not all police officers. So basically what they give us is there is a dirty cop in here, and Nash is like, you know, the best cop, the one, like, not all cops are bad. Nash is a good guy, so you shouldn't hate on all of them. Like, I don't know, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't really like that. Also, back to Lena and Nash, talking about their chemistry. It wasn't like they didn't have any, like, lustful chemistry. It's like the romance was just not believable at all. I still, for the life of me, cannot understand why they ended up being a couple. It beats me. I don't know. And I know I'm making this book sound awful, but there were some good parts in it too. It's just that none of the good parts actually included the two main characters. Literally any scene with Knox, Naomi, Lucian, or Sloane were the best scenes in the book, and all the scenes that were just Nash and Lena and them being romantic or whatever, I just was not into. So you might be wondering, Yumna, if you didn't like this book, then why did you keep reading it? Why didn't you DNF it? Honestly, I wanted to DNF this so bad, but I really believe in the Lucian and Sloane book. I feel in my heart that book number 3, Lucian and Sloane, will change my life. Like, I feel like Lucy Score can do it. She's been hinting at this in these 2 books, and I can't wait. I can't wait till September. I can't wait. Anyway, this was like a 2-star. See ya.
Just the second finished Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. I am doing this quickly before I have to start work. I really enjoyed this one, but I hate to say it, I didn't enjoy it as much as Things We Never Got Over. Like, Knox and Naomi's story was just it for me. But saying that, I think part of the reason why I wasn't enjoying it so much is it's really hard to read a book about people falling in love when you're going through shit with dating. It's just
yeah, it's probably wasn't in the best mindset, let's say, to read this one this week. But the apology and a few years later the bonus apology won the book over for me. I'm a huge Lucy Score fan. I've now read 10 of her books. I'm about to read some more, but yeah, it was so good. Don't get me wrong. It was one of those books that I loved the story. I couldn't, like a lot of people said this, couldn't really remember what happened in Knox and Naomi's story that had caused so much drama. But yeah, I finally picked up bits as I went through. And it was one of those books that, while I probably wasn't in the best mindset to read it this week, it also was such a good distraction. And it was just such a cute little book. Nash is a new book boyfriend, and the apology scene at the end just was so sweet, and it's making me even more excited for Lucian's book. I can't wait for their story because it just seems so juicy. So yeah, don't get me wrong, I did really enjoy it. I'm rating it 5 stars, of course. Just maybe was not the best week for me to read it, and I think that I'm definitely a mood reader, so these things matter. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until just before September, and I'm going to reread both books right before Lucian's, and I feel like I'll just love it even more the second time.
Okay, so I finished my book, Things We Hide from the Light, and this follows Nash and Lena. So Nash is the police officer of the town, and he's kind of like the good brother, and Lena works in insurance, but no one really knows why she's here, and she's keeping her job very secret. But it has to do with like the big plot of what happened to Nash, which is what the book follows and what the storyline is of this book. So like I said, something happened to Nash and he loses his memory and he's not himself in this book, and it's really him like trying to find his way back to who he is, and Lena is able to help him with that. And that's kind of how they fall in love, and they have this cute little love story. However, their love story is very similar to the way the first book's love story went. If anyone's interested in reading this book, I would say read the first book first because the story continues on. And I feel like it could work as a standalone, but it would make more sense if you read the first book because all the books have their own story about the brothers, but they go off of each other. This book also follows the 2 perspectives of Knox and Lena, so it switches POV, like in between chapters. I would also say that this book was a little longer than it needed to be. It was almost 600 pages. There is a little bit of spice in this book, but you have to get like a good 3/4 through for the spice. And then it gets like a little boring, and then you get to the action. But this book is pretty good, and I really like the characters. And this book introduces you more to Lucian, and you find out more about his story. And that's what I'm pretty excited about. So that book comes out in September if you want to get through these 2 books so that you're ready for that one. But yeah, these books are on Kindle Unlimited, and I would definitely say give it a read.
So the first book I read was Things We Hide from the Light, and I rated it 3.25 stars. I was expecting big things because Things We Never Got Over was like a 5-star read for me, but it just didn't hit the mark. It didn't hit the mark for me. I think I preferred the characters Lena and Nash and Things We Never Got Over more than in this story, and I found like I was drawn more to the side characters and the chemistry of the side characters than I was of Nash and Lena. But I think what made Things We Never Got Over so good as well was like setting the scene of Knock 'Em Out and all the side characters, which had already been done, so they couldn't really do that again. They did bring in new characters for Things We Hide from the Light, but yeah, it just didn't hit the mark for me. But I'm really looking forward to Lucian and Sloane's book. I think that's going to be...
Hi friends, I am 20% through Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. This is an arc that I was gifted by Lucy and her publishing company, that's what she said, and I'm loving it. This is book 2. It is the book that comes after Things That We Never Got Over, that features Knox and my brain just keeps wanting to say Naomi. Whew. I highlighted every single time that he said Daisy, so that is just like ingrained in my. This is about Nash and Lena, who is Knox's ex-girlfriend from college, and then Nash is his brother. They live in this small town. He is a sheriff that is having some like PTSD from being shot. She is there doing some shady stuff for a job that we're actually not so sure about at 20%. And yeah, loving the chemistry. I'm loving the like witty banter. She is very much a like, I don't even know how I want to say this. She's like stubborn and true to herself, and she's like very strong-willed, and she's witty. But she's also got this soft side that I'm really loving that's coming out, especially when it's involving Nash and his very obvious depression and anxiety. And as somebody who struggles with both of those, I'm liking the representation. But yeah, I want to share some quotes, but I am making sure I'm talking with my connection over at the publishing company, Rick, to make sure that I can share quotes, because sometimes with an ARC, they completely change things by the time the actual book comes out, so they don't want you sharing words yet, and some of them don't care. So I'll let you know, but if I can share some quotes, I will be sharing some quotes with you, friends, because this is so friends, good. I read this book and I want to talk about it. If you didn't know, this is book 2 in Lucy Score's Knock 'Em Out series, and it directly follows Things We Never Got Over, and that is Knox and Naomi's story, and that was one of my all-time favorite romances, and I absolutely love Knox and Naomi, and they pop in throughout book 2, and I almost love them even more so. So book 2 is Knox's brother, Nash, who is the chief of police, and he is like the good brother, the good guy to Knox's bad guy, grumpy a-hole persona. And then Lena is Knox's ex-girlfriend from college, but like, we don't talk about that. She's more just a best friend, and also becoming really good friends with Naomi and Sloane and all the other girls and ladies, I should say, in the town. So in book 1, a huge side plot was crime involving Naomi's sister, and in book 2, we are still diving right in that. If anything, book 2 focuses even more on the crime and like suspense side plot. Yeah, it's pretty deep in there. Lena is in town visiting Knox, but not really. And she's got her feet firmly planted in some not so legal stuff that she's investigating. And of course, in book 1, Nash has gotten shot, and he's reeling from, anxiety and PTSD and some pretty bad depression from that, and just feeling like he's failed as an officer and failed at his job. And he feels this extreme pressure to keep everybody safe and keep things in order, and he feels like he's done a horrible job of that. And swoops Lena, who just grounds him and makes him feel so whole and healthy and happy again. And it's so, watching that grow. This is a lot more of a slow burn than book 1, I would say. While they're very open with their feelings, and like where book 1, they were like, I hate you. Book 2, they're like, yeah, I really dig you, but like, this can't happen. We're messy. So it was a little more of a slow burn, and I would say less steamy than book 1, but not any less enjoyable. If there's anything that Lucy Score can do, it is make me laugh out loud, and that was no different in this book. I seriously laughed so many flippin' times, and oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so excited for Lucian and Sloane, book 3. I'm like, I am so excited. The chemistry, the tension, and the epilogue of this book is the wedding between Knox and Naomi. And it was just perfect. It comes out February 21st, so do not forget to go.
I read Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. First of all, love her. She's my Insta-buy author. Like, she's one of my favorite authors, and I want to keep reading more of her books. Anyway, so this is the second book in the Knock 'Em Out series. The first one was about Knox and Naomi. This is about Lena and Nash. So Nash is Knox's brother, and Lena is Knox's friend. So Lena is in town because she works for like insurance. So basically she collects She's like a bounty hunter, but for like missing items, I guess. That's how they like worded it. So she's in town, but no one really knows why she's in town. And Nash is the chief of police. So there's that. But he is kind of like struggling right now because he got shot, I think in the last book. He got shot, and so he's having like panic attacks, and he's really like struggling, and he's just like super depressed because he doesn't like feel anything. But guess who makes him feel things? Lena. And she moves in next door to him. So forced proximity. They're not enemies, but like, I don't know. A little bit of angst. Also, it was kind of a slow burn, a little bit. Like, they didn't kiss until like, I think halfway through. And I didn't even notice. That's like how enthralled I was with this book. I didn't even notice. I was just like so obsessed. Don't mind the car coming at me. I rated it 4.75 stars. Like, chef's kiss. I can't wait for the next book to come out. I'm pretty sure that's Lucian and Sloane's book, which Sloane's like a librarian and Lucian is like this like private sector like the guy. I don't know what he does. But this book was so good. I loved Nash's story. It's like grumpy almost in the beginning, and then it's like Grumpy Sunshine, like reverse Grumpy Sunshine at the end. But read this book, like read it. I loved it. I sped through it because I was enjoying it. There's some action in it, which I love that Lucy Score has like action parts in her book, and it's not just like third act breakup and there's like no reason behind it. Like, love. Anyway, read this book. I'm literally just struggling on, so read it. Thank you.
Reading Things We Hide from the Light, which is the second book of the Knockmount series, and I finished it like 30 minutes ago, so I'm gonna do the review right now because I'm literally gonna wake up tomorrow and forget everything I had in my brain. So let's do it. So I read the second book on my Kindle and I give it a 4 out of 5 stars, whereas I gave the first book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. So I would say the first one was definitely better than the second one in my opinion. I really didn't like how much focus they put on the Duncan Hugo plot. I think I literally just read a full novel like this big from the first book about that type of thing. So having to read a whole nother 500-page book about the same guy was kind of tedious, and it kind of felt redundant in my opinion. I also was not a fan of how quick Lena and Nash were to get together. I would have liked some more banter, like tension. It kind of felt like once they got together, they were together, which is obviously like a personal preference. I like whenever it's a little more drawn out and a little more bantery, I guess. I really liked Nash in the first book. In the second book, he literally was not my favorite. I found myself in the second book more drawn to Lucy's character, which is probably going to have me really excited for the third book. But in this book, I was not Nash's biggest fan. I kind of felt myself more drawn to Lucy and Sloane's side plot. Speaking of side plot, the whole romance kind of felt like a side plot because it felt like the main plot was the whole Hugo situation, which is literally just personal preference because I'm a romance reader. I did not sign up for like a full murdered case type of thing, but literally that's just personal preference, like I've said 20 times. It wasn't bad though. I found myself laughing at it in multiple occasions. It was actually really funny. The dialogue made me laugh. The dialogue also was not that cringy, which is great because I hate a book with cringy dialogue. Also, so probably about like 50% into the book, the couples are already together. Even if it's not official, they're literally together. So the last 50% of the book is just crap, I'm gonna be honest. Like, yeah, they're still looking for Hugo and who shot Nash and all this stuff. It literally just felt like a rerun of the first book, I'm gonna be honest. The first book definitely kept me entertained for longer than the second book. By the time I was like 70% into this book, I did not find myself compelled to finish it. Like, I could have literally just stopped right there
and not finished it. But I had to finish it, obviously, so I could give this review. But yeah. Also, really did not like how Nash literally asked Lena to marry him, like, so random. So random. But that's also just me being me. So,
okay,
yeah.
It's book review time. We're going to talk about Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. It's the second book in the Knock 'Em Out series. The first one was Things We Never Got Over. This is about Nash, who is Knox's brother, and Lena, who is somebody from Knox's past. And I can't remember if they, like, dated, but I honestly don't remember. But this follows along right where the other one left off. This is, like, kind of them figuring out, like, the whole drama of, like, why Nash got shot, who shot him, the whole bit. So I don't know how I would categorize this book either, because it's not really an enemies to lovers. Like, they definitely go back and forth, and they have a lot of, like, you know, angst and banter, but it's not really an enemies to lovers. It's definitely a slow burn. I mean, this book does not, like, heat up until, like, the 63% mark. Like, the first time they smooch, it was at, like, 63%. I literally looked at my Kindle, was like, I can't believe it was this long. And their relationship to me came a little bit out of left field. Like, Nash kind of had, like, insta love with her, but they are a fun couple. The book is more about, like, figuring out, like, the mystery crimes thing, and, like, them figuring out each other and their pasts and, like, getting over things. And then the relationship to me was, like, took a backseat. But it was so good. I still finished it in, like, a day and a half. I am looking forward to the third book in this series about Lucian and Sloane, because Lucian seems like the perfect leading man, like, broody and, you know, mysterious. And Sloane is, like, the fun Spitfire best friend of Naomi. So that book I cannot wait for. So let me know what you thought about Things We Hide from the Light.
I finally got to finish Things We Hide from the Light, which is the sequel to Things We Never Got Over. So we're taken right back to Nakama, Virginia, right after the events from the first book, where we saw Naomi and Whaley get abducted, and we saw Nash getting shot while on duty. We have gotten to know Nash as the sweet one of the Morgan brothers, but because of his injuries, he's in a really dark place mentally and emotionally. That is until his new neighbor Elena moves next door to him, and she's the only one who makes him feel emotions other than numbness. And she's in town temporarily while on assignment from her mysterious job. Lena is tough, she's independent, she is such a baddie, so it's sweet to see her let her guard down with Nash. The book has more focus on the investigation and trying to catch the criminals responsible for the abduction and the shooting. So we get to see all our favorite characters getting together in order to put a stop to the danger that surrounds them. We also get some insight on wedding prep for Naomi and Knox's wedding. And I love seeing Naomi and Whaley. They're such sweet characters, my favorite ones in the first book. And in this book, we get less steam, but just as much heart and lots of fun mentions of the local treasure that is Nash's behind. We have an emotional epilogue too that was definitely a tearjerker. I have such a soft spot for Whaley. It's a lovely story sprinkled with humor, suspense, spice, and emotion. The next book will be about Lucian and Sloane, and I'm dying to know what the heck happened with those two. Have you read the book? What did you think?
I just finished Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. So if you've seen my previous TikTok, I ordered it as a pre-order, but it came late, so I read it on my Kindle instead. This right here, this was a 5 out of 5 for me. And if you're a big fan of the small town romance, neighbors, forced proximity tropes, then you will definitely love this book too.
So I just finished Things We Hide from the Light from Lucy Score, and I need to give my honest opinion on it because I feel like it's a very, very hyped up series that's going on TikTok right now, and I've seen a lot of mixed reviews, but I just want to give like my personal opinion. So I read the first one about a month or two ago, and it was amazing. I read it in one night. I couldn't stop reading it. This one, it took me a few days to read it. I probably finished in like 2 or 3 days. Personally, I loved it. I did give it a 5-star rating, but I do have some complaints about it, I would say. I feel like because it was a continuation of the first one, it was a little repetitive in certain situations. I'm trying to say things without giving spoilers for those who have not read it. There were a lot of comedic chapters in here, a lot of like group settings I absolutely loved. Like I was here for it. Like we need more scenes of all of the group, if you know what I mean. And I did not like that it took 360 something pages to get a bit of spice in here. I mean, come on, I know Nash isn't all, he's not Knox, but he's Nash, and he's a Morgan, and we needed more spice in the beginning. And I got this one signed. I went to a Lucy Score signing the other day in New York City, and she was so sweet. I absolutely adored her, and I'm just really excited for this series to continue. So this is the last book of February that I read. And later on, maybe tomorrow, I will be doing my full February reviews. So I'm excited for that. But definitely a 5-star book. And if you liked the first book, you will. I think you really will like the second one. It was amazing. Minimal complaints. Overall, 5-star book. I loved it.
24 hours. In 24 hours, I finished this brand new book, Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. Get it if you haven't already because it was good.
Things We Hide from the Light, the follow-up book to Things We Never Got Over. I absolutely loved this book and how it featured all the characters and places that I fell in love with in the first one, while still having its own storyline. Already counting down the days till the third book comes out, featuring Sloane and Lucian. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these.
Alright guys, so I read Lucy Score, Things We Hide from the Light, and I just wanted to pop on here and do a quick little book review. So this is book 2 and in Lucy Score's Knock 'Em Out series, first book being Things We Never Got Over. Definitely read that one first because this is a continuation. This book picks up right where that left off, and if you read this one first, you will be very confused. You will be very confused. You won't know what's going on, who is who, where you come from. Yeah, read that one first. Please do not read this one first. That being said, this book follows Nash Morgan and Lena or Angelina Salavita. Nash is the chief of police in the town of Knock 'Em Out, and Lena is passing through the town on business. She ends up moving in next door to Nash, and that's where, they kick off, and that's when their, romance starts. Obviously, this is a romance book, so, their romance kicks off and, they start finding the light in each other. And like I said, he was in a very, very dark place and leaned on her to bring him kind of out of that dark and depressing state that he was in. And she also leaned on him to, help her break down some of those barriers that she spent her entire life building for some of the trauma that she went through in the past. And they really, bring that light, that brightness, and that positivity out of each other. Not only that, I feel like Lucy Score has a really good way of writing amazing side characters. The town of Knock 'Em Out is, a very small, close-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. So all those characters that we were reading about in the first book were having cameos and popping up in this book, which I just thought enhanced the story and made for a better read. Overall, I gave this book 5 stars on Goodreads. I thought it was flawlessly written. I thought the character building was excellent. I loved reading about how their characters shifted, and I loved reading about some of the side characters and their stories. Not only that, like I said, Nash was the chief of police, and there was an investigation going on, and I was trying to help them crack a case. I gave this a 3.5 for spice. Nash is a talker, girls. We love that. But overall, I thought this was a great book. It was very entertaining. It was very funny. It had some rom-com moments in there with the jokes and, the little tit for tat comments back and forth when they were having their little tiffs. I just thought this book was great. Definitely, you guys, read this book. But like I said, read Things We Never Got Over first and then read this one. You will not be disappointed with either book. Lucy Score knows what she's doing, and she knows how to write a book.
We finished Things We Hide from the Light. Let's do a quick review of this. This book is Nash and Lena's story. Nash is Knox's brother and Lena is Knox's friend. Knox is one of the main characters in the first book, Things We Never Got Over. Not only is this about Nash and Lena's relationship, but it's also about Nash trying to heal from something very traumatic that happened to him in the first book. I did not like this book. I gave it 2 stars. It's probably going to upset some people. This is one of the cringiest books I've ever read. So many little pet names being thrown around in this. I couldn't handle it. I thought this book was incredibly slow, entirely too long. I kept waiting for something exciting to happen, and in my opinion, it just never did. I also could not connect with Lena's character. I didn't really like her very much. I feel like the organized crime aspect in this one, in my opinion, it took over the romance theme that I was so desperately wanting more of from this book. So needless to say, I did not really like this book. And I don't even know if I'll be reading the third. I don't think I can do it. If you have read this, Let me know your thoughts.
Book, Things We Hide from the Light, Nash and Lena's story. It's actually my favorite out of the two. Good guy, bad girl romance with also tackling depression, anxiety, childhood trauma. I just found their love story so beautiful, and he calls her Angel. Come on. It was such a good month. Love you, bye.
The next book, Things We Hide from the Light, is about Knox's brother Nash. It's Grumpy Sunshine but reversed, where the girl's grumpy, the guy is sunshine. It's more about the crime of the first book that I wasn't that into, so I have to say I prefer Things We Never Got Over, but it's a great series and I highly recommend it.
I finished The Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score, and I love this book. I'm giving it 4 stars. Let's just hop into what I loved. The things in this book: mental health. I love how beautifully it was covered. It wasn't too like glossed over, and it was very detailed, and I have experience in this, so I thought it was highlighted quite beautifully and realistically. This was not a grumpy ex Sunshine. This was a grumpy ex Grumpy, and I loved it. I loved the male main character. I loved the female main character. I thought the chemistry was there, and this also could be because Lucy Score's books are just so thick for romance, but like she has time to develop a story and characters and relationships really wonderfully because there's so many pages in these romance books. I think that's a good and a bad thing. Yeah, I loved all the characters, secondary, main characters. I love the characters from the previous book that we get to see in here, and I can't wait for book 3, which I hope is Lucy and Sloane's story. The thing that I didn't like is the plot is centered around like this lie, and I just thought the reasoning behind the lie was just so stupid. I would have liked something a little bit more depth, or I don't know, something more to bring about emotion, but either way, I loved it. It had some spice, it had some romance, I laughed out loud, which I find I do a lot with Lucy Score's books, so I'm recommending you pick this up. 45 stars.
Okay, so let's get into it. First off, my rating, I gave it 4 stars, and my chili pepper rating, I think I gave it 3 chili peppers. I read this at the very beginning of the month, and I have been slacking on doing my journaling after I've read the book, and that's where I write my ratings and like spice ratings. And I think I forgot to, well, I didn't do my entry for this one, so I kind of forgot what spice rating I gave it, but I'm pretty sure it was 3 chili peppers. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Things We Hide from the Light is the second installment in the Knock 'Em Out series. The first one was Things We Never Got Over. So in this book we have Knox and Naomi, and in this one we have Nash and Lena. Now Nash is Knox's brother, and Lena is actually Knox's ex-girlfriend. So Knox is the grumpy brother, big grump, and Nash is like the good guy, cop, nice guy brother. In Things We Never Got Over, Knox meets Naomi and they fall in love. Naomi has a twin sister who is just a horrible person, and she's caught up with this, like, she's got this, like, boyfriend who's trying to prove himself to his dad, and he's, like, involved with, like, crime and whatnot. So Naomi gets kidnapped. Knox, Nash, and the whole freaking town run and go find her, and Nash actually gets shot in the process. So Things We Hide from the Light picks up right after Things We Never Got Over. So Nash is recovering from his bullet wounds, and he just feels like not whole. He's not himself. He's going through a lot of trauma, and now he's starting to be the grumpy brother, and he's just like not himself, you know? Lena showed up in Knock 'Em Out in Things We Never Got Over, like randomly. And so now she needs a place to stay, and Knox lets her live in his like apartment building, and so she's neighbors with none other than Nash. So Nash is, you know, really depressed, really in his feels. Lena is there, and no one knows, like he's not talking about it, he's not telling anyone about it. Lena is in Knock 'Em Out on a job assignment that is very secretive. No one knows her job title. No one knows why she's there, and she's doesn't want to tell them why she's there. There was somewhat of an attraction between them in this one, Especially like when he gets shot, Lena like runs over and basically like takes care of him. So now knowing that they're neighbors, Nash is like freaking out, you know what I mean? And they're still dealing with the same like villain and bad guy in this one that was in this one, because he got away. So they're looking for him still. So with that being said, the plots are very similar in a sense. But that didn't bother me at all. Like, I love Nash and I love Lena because Lena's a freaking badass. Like, I love her character. But I didn't feel the literal obsession that I had over Knox. And like even Naomi, like I love them together, but I could not get over like my obsession for Knox. So I didn't feel the same way about Nash, although I liked him too. Like, just I wasn't obsessed. And my favorite parts in this book were literally only when Knox showed up. Knox and Naomi, any interactions between them were the parts that really stood out to me. Like, if anything, this one just made me so excited for the third installment for Lucian and Sloane's story. Like, every time they were brought up, I was like, oh my god. Like, the anticipation for that one is crazy. I literally can't wait for that one to come out. Especially reading, there was like 2 epilogues. There's like a normal epilogue and then like a bonus epilogue. After reading those 2 epilogues, I like, oh man, it's going to be tough waiting for that one to come out. But again, with that being said, the epilogues are probably my favorite part of the entire book. Mainly because we get like Knox and Naomi's wedding. But I still really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I didn't not have a good time, you know. But this is such a fun series. I love it so much. I can't look at these covers. Oh, they're so freaking cool. I really enjoy Lucy's writing. And I cannot wait for the 3rd book to come out. I cannot think of the title to save my life right now. But I think that's all I got for this one, guys. So check it out if you like small town romances. It was fun. Okay, thanks. Bye.